Welcome to our deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a question that has probably been, running as a sort of quiet, exhausting background process in your mind for a while now.
Yeah, we're looking at a really fascinating set of analytical notes today, known as the GOA-32 thesis.
Right. Along with this structural framework called Minifield's LMOS. And the goal today is to examine this really profound but honestly almost invisible shift in how we perceive reality.
Exactly. We are looking at why the world feels so incredibly unstable to you, even when, it looks like everything is functioning just fine on paper.
Yeah, because usually when we think about a crisis, there's an expectation of visibility, right? Like think of an earthquake. The ground violently shakes, the dishes fall out of your kitchen cabinets, the power grid goes down.
Right. If an undeniable shared reality, the anomaly is visible to everyone at the exact same time.
Right.
And because of that shared visibility, society knows exactly how to react. We pull together, we clean up the dishes, we rebuild. The crisis has a clear beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah, but then, you look at the world right now, and that traditional crisis model just completely breaks down. We have this bizarre paradox that I know you, listening right now, have probably felt in your own day-to-day life. Like,
Mm,
AI investment is absolutely exploding. Wars are dragging on with no end in sight. Global logistics are constantly facing these weird, unpredictable hiccups. And the sheer everyday cost of living just feels like it's getting heavier by the week.
right.
Yet, the stock market just keeps humming along. Cities aren't stopping. Social media keeps right on scrolling. So why doesn't this feel like a classic crisis? Why does the ground feel tilted even though the dishes aren't falling?
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, it's a profound disconnect.
Oh.
And the most important thing to understand right out of the gate is that you are not imagining things.
Mm.
What we're observing today,
Mhm.
according to the GOA-32 thesis, is not some dramatic story of the world collapsing in on itself.
Right.
We are not looking at an apocalypse. We are observing a world that is quietly shifting phases. Historically, things like local prices or the evening news or statements from national institutions, they gave us a shared baseline.
Yeah, they were our coordinates.
Exactly. Today, those coordinates are actively drifting apart, and they are doing so without making a sound.
The sources called this a shift away from an information shortage and into an era where our grounding surface for judgment is eroding away.
Right.
And I want to make sure we really understand that mechanism
Yeah.
because there is this everyday discomfort that is just so hard to put your finger on.
Yeah, it really is.
In the past, humanity understood things were going wrong through visible anomalies, sudden stock market crash, a total blackout, completely empty supermarket shelves. We don't have those total systemic stops right now.
No, we don't.
So structurally, why does this current crisis feel so strangely quiet?
What's fascinating here is that to understand the quietness, we really have to look at the three layers of observation that are detailed in the Minifield's LMOS framework.
Okay.
It argues that society is currently operating in a phase of multiple coexisting realities.
Multiple coexisting realities.
Yeah.
Got it.
And these realities are layered on top of each other, but they're falling out of sync. They define these as the N layer, the I layer, and the OS layer.
Okay, let me see if I can translate these layers into a real-world scenario, and you tell me if I'm tracking.
Sure.
So let's say I'm looking at the economy. The N layer, which stands for the narrative layer, that's the official story, right?
Right.
It's the headline on my phone saying, GDP is up, inflation is cooling, everything is technically fine.
Exactly.
Then beneath that is the I layer, the internal layer. That's my personal anxiety, my underlying fear when I look at my shrinking savings account, regardless of what the headline says. And then the deepest one is the OS layer, the operating system. Is that just like the banks?
Well, you've got the N and the I layers perfectly, but let's go a bit deeper on the OS layer.
Okay.
It is much more than just the banks. The operating system layer is the actual physical mechanics of reality.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's the complex algorithms moving capital, the literal shipping containers crossing the Pacific, military deployments, the electrical grids powering server farms. It's the raw physical machinery of the world.
Oh, I see. So the N layer is like the dashboard, but the OS layer is the engine itself.
Yes. And this is where we find the core friction.
Okay.
The quietness of our current instability happens because the narrative layer, the dashboard, is largely telling us that the car is running perfectly. The dials all look normal.
Right.
But the OS layer, the actual engine of the world, is secretly experiencing massive compounding friction. The gears are heavily grinding against each other, but society has built such excellent soundproofing that we don't hear the metal shearing. We just feel a vague vibration.
Oh, man, that makes so much sense. But wait, If the N layer is shouting that the economy is great, and the people in charge can presumably, look under the hood at the OS layer and see the gears grinding, why don't they just fix the friction?
Right.
Like, what is actually stopping the system from correcting itself?
It comes down to a fundamental, unresolvable mismatch in speed.
Speed. When I was reading the notes on the speed mismatch, a very specific analogy jumped to mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It feels exactly like trying to run a lightning-fast, next-generation operating system on a smartphone that's, say, 5 or 6 years old.
That is a highly effective way to visualize the structure. Let's map that to the real world.
Right, because if I put this year's software on an old phone, the device doesn't just, spontaneously explode.
No.
The screen doesn't shatter, but the battery drains in 45 minutes. The screen stutters every time I try to scroll, apps randomly close, and the physical device gets uncomfortably, worryingly hot in your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
The physical hardware literally cannot keep up with the software's demands, and the energy has to go somewhere, so it turns into heat.
And in the context of the GOA-32 thesis, the fast OS, the new software, consists of artificial intelligence, algorithmic global finance, and high-frequency social media.
Wow, yeah.
These systems are updating, processing data, and executing massive structural decisions in milliseconds, or at most, days.
They are operating at light speed.
Meanwhile, you have the slow reality, the old hardware.
Right.
This consists of our physical energy grids, the actual cargo ships, moving goods, government policy-making institutions, and fundamental human cognition. These things move in months, years, or even decades.
Yeah, that's a huge gap.
You cannot update a physical power grid in milliseconds. You cannot pass a comprehensive international trade law overnight.
So what is the actual mechanism that happens when you force those two vastly different speeds to interact? Because, friction sounds a bit abstract.
The structural consequence is called shear. In physics, shear is the destructive force created when two connected layers slide past one another in opposite directions or different speeds.
Oh, I see.
In our society, the rationality of the fast world has completely disconnected from the bodily experience of the slow world.
Give me a concrete example of that shear. How does a normal person experience that physics concept in their daily life?
Let's look at the global food supply chain. In the fast layer, an AI-driven commodities algorithm can detect a slight weather anomaly in South America, instantly project a future wheat shortage, and execute thousands of trades to adjust prices.
In a fraction of a second.
Exactly.
Right.
In that millisecond, the market has efficiently and rationally corrected itself. The fast OS is happy. But in the slow reality, a local baker or a family trying to buy groceries experiences that rapid correction as a sudden, inexplicable price spike that wrecks their monthly budget. Or consider a factory worker whose supply chain is constantly optimized by AI. The algorithm efficiently routes and reroutes materials every hour to save fractions of a cent, but the human worker on the floor experiences this as unpredictable shift changes, delayed parts, and constant grinding stress.
Yeah.
The fast layer and the slow layer are rubbing against each other, and that friction creates structural heat.
But if the hardware is literally outpaced by the software and the shear is generating all this heat, how hasn't the whole global system just frozen up and crashed?
Because human society is undergoing a massive silent adaptation. According to the framework, we are fundamentally giving up on the idea of fully understanding reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We're just throwing our hands up.
Not exactly. We are shifting from seeking a correct explanation to something the sources call probabilistic operation.
Probabilistic operation. That sounds incredibly clinical, like how an autonomous drone navigates a forest, not how a society functions.
It is exactly how complex systems handle overwhelming variables when perfect data is impossible. Because complete synchronization of all these fast and slow layers is now structurally unachievable, individuals and institutions are settling for explanations and models that are just good enough to keep moving.
I see.
Absolute 100% transparency is no longer the goal.
Because waiting for absolute transparency means you freeze. You get paralyzed waiting for the slow physical facts to catch up to the algorithmic projections.
Consider a city planner or global logistics manager today. 10 years ago, they might have waited for comprehensive quarterly reports to make a decision about routing shipping containers or allocating city funds.
Right.
Today, the data changes before the report is even printed. If they wait for perfect understanding, the supply chain halts. So they operate probabilistically.
Wow.
They look at a fragmented dashboard, accept an 80% confidence rate, and make the call. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the focus shifts to reconnectability.
Reconnectability, what does that mean?
It's the ability to tolerate phase differences.
Mm.
It is the capacity of a system or a human being to hold multiple, slightly contradictory grounding surfaces at once and to pause final judgment without the whole operation breaking down.
Right. Yeah.
We are quite literally learning to operate the machinery of society under partial, permanent uncertainty.
I really want to bring this right down to the listener's daily reality because living your personal life in a constant state of partial uncertainty, having to act like a probabilistic algorithm just to get through the week, that is incredibly exhausting.
It is. Sure.
When you are trying to decide whether to buy a house or change careers or even just figure out if a news story is real and the coordinates are constantly drifting, I mean, it drains you. The sources explicitly define this, don't they? They call it judgment fatigue.
Yes. And we must analyze this structurally, not just psychologically. When humans are trapped in that shear zone we talked about, caught between a high-speed information environment demanding immediate reactions and a low-speed daily reality where their physical lives barely change, they experience a state that resembles suspension.
Suspension. Like treading water indefinitely in the middle of the ocean. You aren't drowning, but you aren't swimming anywhere, and your muscles are just screaming.
Exactly. Your brain is desperately trying to sync with a fast OS, but your body and your physical circumstances are bound by the slow reality.
Right.
That state of suspension drains immense cognitive energy.
Yeah.
And this leads to how society actually reacts to this massive collective fatigue.
And before we get into the societal reaction, it's crucial to note that the researchers behind the LMOS framework aren't taking a political stance here.
No, not at all.
Right. We are just looking at the source material. We're not taking sides, left or right. They are acting almost like societal physicists. When they look at the current explosion of aggressive rhetoric online or political tribalism, they aren't judging it as right or wrong. They are purely looking at the mechanics of human behavior under structural stress.
That neutrality is essential for understanding the actual mechanism at play. Because when judgment fatigue sets in, the sources note a localized amplification of several behaviors.
Okay, like what?
Strong, aggressive words, hypersimplified explanations, immediate and rigid assertions, intense conformity pressure, and the rapid spread of conspiracy theories.
The notes also mention a term here that threw me off a bit, chronic depolarization. And I have to stop you there because usually all we hear is that society is hyperpolarized, right?
Right.
That we are fiercely divided into two warring camps. Why are the sources calling it depolarization?
Think about what polarization actually implies. True polarization requires a shared axis. It's a tug-of-war. Both sides are pulling on the exact same rope, disagreeing over the same issue, but fundamentally sharing the same grounding surface. Depolarization, in this context, means the rope itself has vanished.
Oh, wow.
People are no longer even arguing on the same axis. They are just free-falling in different directions, desperately searching for a floor.
So all that loud, angry rhetoric on social media, I mean, on the surface, it just looks like everyone is losing their minds?
Structurally, they aren't losing their minds. They are desperately searching for a grounding coordinate. These reactions are not genuine attempts to deepen one's understanding of complex global issues.
Right.
They serve as what the framework calls short-term rectifiers. When a person feels their reality slipping away, when the anxiety of probabilistic operation becomes too heavy to bear, a simple, aggressive assertion provides an artificial, temporary grounding surface.
Even if it's not real.
Exactly. It feels like solid ground for a fleeting moment, even if it's complete illusion.
That perfectly sets up a concept in the many fields framework that I found incredibly illuminating, which is emotion as gradient.
Yes. The idea is that when we see strong anger, fear, or even intense irrational optimism in society, we shouldn't just dismiss it as noise. We should look at it as a sensor.
Those strong emotions are structural signals showing us exactly where the membrane tension is highest in society.
I want to expand on that metaphor of the membrane because it really clicked for me. Think of a rubber balloon representing the local cost of living.
Okay.
And it is being rapidly inflated by the high-speed air of algorithmic pricing and global inflation. The membrane of that balloon is stretching thinner and thinner.
Right.
The extreme anger you see at the grocery store checkout line isn't just random irrational noise. It's the rubber literally squeaking and groaning right before it snaps.
Yeah.
The emotion reveals the exact physical pressure point where the fast OS is pushing against the slow reality.
That is an excellent visualization. The emotion tells you exactly where the shear is causing the most damage.
So what does this all mean? Let me challenge one of the core ideas here, though. Let's
Okay.
talk about the total loss of shared coordinates.
If you and I and our listener are all looking at the exact same data, say we see the exact same inflation report, we pay the exact same price for a gallon of milk, we look at the identical stock market chart, how can we possibly be living in different realities? The numbers are objective, the data is real.
Because the grounding surface is no longer just about the data itself. It is about the speed at which you are processing and experiencing that data.
Okay.
The sources clarify that this is a desynchronization of judgment coordinates.
Desynchronization. Walk me through exactly how that works. How do two people experience the same objective fact out of sync?
Because the AI market, national policymaking, and daily household budgets are all moving at entirely different velocities, two people can observe the exact same objective event, but process it from entirely different temporal phases. Let's use a major global logistics failure as an example. Say, a massive canal gets blocked, halting shipping.
Okay, an objective, undeniable event.
A person deeply embedded in the fast OS, like a hedge fund algorithm developer or an institutional trader, processes that blockage in seconds.
Right.
They immediately see it as a data point, an opportunity to short a logistics stock or pivot a supply chain model. To them, the event is immediately priced in, resolved, and placed in the past.
The fast layer has already moved on.
Exactly. But a person living purely in the slow reality, a factory worker, depending on parts from those ships, or a small business owner, will experience the physical impact of that exact same event 6 months later when their materials don't arrive, their shift is canceled, or their cost of living inexplicably spikes.
They are looking at the exact same event, but they are separated by 6 months of temporal shear.
They are inhabiting what the GOA-32 thesis calls multi-phase coexistence. They share the same physical planet, but they do not share the same grounding surface for judgment.
Wow.
The trader says the system is robust and quickly self-corrected. The factory worker says the system is broken and actively crushing me right now. And structurally, mathematically, they are both entirely correct within their respective phases.
Wow. That fundamentally changes how you process the news or even how you talk to your neighbors. The world isn't breaking apart in the traditional explosive sense of an earthquake.
No, it's not.
The very coordinates we use to read and agree upon the world are just quietly drifting away from each other at different speeds.
It is the definition of a crisis without a visible collapse. The architecture of reality is simply shifting to a state where holding a single unified view of the world is structurally impossible. This raises an important question for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered a massive amount of conceptual ground today. We've mapped out why the world feels quietly unstable, how the narrative layer tells us everything is fine while the OS layer is secretly grinding its gears.
Right.
And we explored the sheer force created by our lightning-fast tech and finance systems, pulling away from the slow reality of our physical infrastructure and human lives.
And we examined how that speed mismatch creates deep judgment fatigue, forcing individuals and institutions to abandon the desire for perfect understanding in favor of probabilistic operation. Just trying to find an explanation or a model good enough to keep the machinery moving.
And for you listening right now, it is so deeply important to recognize that the subtle discomfort, that profound exhaustion you might feel trying to navigate the economy, your career, or just your social media feed, it isn't a personal failing.
No, absolutely not.
You aren't doing something wrong. It is a structural reality.
Right.
You are living in a desynchronized world. You are feeling the physical friction of the shear.
Which leaves us with a quiet but critical reflection. The source material intentionally does not offer a neat, tidy solution. It does not provide a life hack to fix multi-phase coexistence.
Right, there's no quick fix here.
Instead, it offers a prompt for observation. In a world that coexists while remaining completely out of sync, where does the feeling of being unable to judge actually begin for you?
In your own daily life, where do you find your unfixed coordinates?
When the ground is slowly tilting under your feet, rather than rushing to find a rigid, short-term rectifier, rather than desperately grabbing for the first loud, simple explanation just to feel grounded, can you locate the specific places where friction accumulates in your own life? What remains strangely silent in your world? Can you simply listen to the possibilities of connection that exist within that uncertainty?
It's like we discussed at the very beginning. We are so conditioned to wait for the dishes to fall out of the cabinets to confirm we are in a crisis. We are waiting for the visible anomaly.
Yeah.
But maybe the real task of this era isn't bracing for an earthquake that might never come, Maybe it's just learning how to walk gracefully and perhaps a bit more probabilistically on constantly tilting ground.